Hi, my name is Kenzie and welcome to a watercolor tutorial. Today we're going to be painting this Monarch butterfly landing on some wildflowers. I think I say this every video, but I loved painting this. I love the colors, how they complement each other. Kind of talk about complementary colors a little bit. I hope you all have fun painting this as much as I did. Feel free to use your own colors. At the end, you can add some leaves, some more flowers, really make it your own, and let's get painting. So this right here is my Winsor Newton watercolor paints that I have taken from the tube and put it inside this palette that I got off of Amazon. I have a tapping cloth right here. It's always good to have one. That way you don't have excess water on your page. I also have my 2 water cups right here. One I use for cool paints and one I use for my warmer paint colors. I also have right here my dryer. I like to use this to speed up the process between layers. These are the brushes that I use. These are the silver black velvet. I have size 12, 4, and 8, and these are the round tip brushes. So these are also some other brushes that I like to use as well. If I have a large area like a landscape, I'll typically use this brush. And this oval brush that I have right here is really good for florals and other things as well. So I do like these 2 brushes. I don't use this kind of brush often, but it is good to have if I'm painting bricks or other details in my painting, so I do have this one handy. These 2 items I use all the time. This is called masking fluid. It acts as a cover, so wherever I put this masking fluid, let it dry, I can paint over top, can make sure my painting is 100% dry. I can scrape off the masking fluid and that area will be left untouched. So I use this a lot, but make sure to use an old brush because it does get kind of goopy and you'll end up with a broken brush. I also like to use bleed proof white. This is a very highly pigmented white, which will sit on top of any type of color. These 3 palettes I do use often. They are the Prima Marketing palettes. Today I'm going to be using the Vintage Pastels. Today I'm going to be using Currants. I'm using this painting as an example. I always like to have painter's tape on hand. I like to paint down my paintings. It's easier to 1, film, and 2, also just keep everything from moving around and it getting a little messy. It also helps to protect your desk, which you'll see mine is very worn. So it definitely does help with that. Okay, so I want to do a traditional Monarch butterfly over here. So keeping with the complementary colors, I'm going to be making my flowers focus more on my blues and my purples in hopes to really just make my butterfly pop. So that being said, I'm going to use my Currants palette for Prima Marketing. It's such a beautiful palette. Lots of blues and some greens in here that I'm going to be using. I can already tell right here this one's catching my eye. So I think I'm going to have this one color be my main focus for this flower right here. So I'm going to clean off my brush. I still had paint from another painting that I was doing. And I am going to mix this blue into my palette area. It's a little bit, yeah, I like that more. I'm going to mix these 2 different colors together. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go petal by petal. So I want to first apply my color that I like around, not touching the center here because that's going to be a different color. I'm going to get rid of everything on my brush or use a secondary brush. Using just water, I'm going to blend out this color. Blend, 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 all the way up. I can even use this to come up again. And using what I have, I can blend. I can even leave some white space, which is my paper, just to shine through a little space of my paper. I can come in with a more potent blue. And I can touch where it's still wet and have that nice bleed. If it's not really bleeding, like mine did not bleed that much, you can use water and kind of make it bleed. Touch different spots with different shades of blue. And there we go. I'm really happy with how that looks. So now you can see a variation of 1 different types of blues and 2 from lights to dark. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to come and do this one. So this petal it's the back side, so it's going to be that much darker than the inside. So I'm going to use a lot more pigment here, touching my other blue that I have down towards my bottom, bringing it up just a little bit while it's still wet. Touch, touch, touch. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of everything on my brush. Just have a little bit of blue. I'm gonna bring it up that much more. Okay, get rid of everything on my brush. And using what I have already down, I'm gonna bring this up to my line right here. And again, you can use white space if you'd like. I'm gonna come around towards my outer edge right here and apply just that much more blue. I'm going to use just water and blend out any harsh lines that I might have. I'm going to bring up this blue. And I'm going to let these ones dry. If I kept going, everything would just bleed and blend, kind of what you just saw right here, which I don't want. So I'm going to come across and I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do my other blue one here and have this one be purple. Okay, but now I just have to decide what kind of blue I want. Maybe like a deeper blue. I'm going to play around with my colors a little bit. No, I'm going to put a little bit of purple inside of my blue. Yes. There we go. Mixing purple and blue for this one. That way we have a different types of variation here. So again, I'm going to have my darkest point be towards my center. I'm slowly going to start dragging this out. Mixing that color again so it's really nice, dark, and pigmented. I can touch towards my center here. Get rid of everything on my brush. Using what we have already down, we can use water to drag this out so it's lighter. We can scoop if we want to highlight with just a damp brush, or we can use white space by just letting the paper shine through. I'm going to do it on this side. Bringing it up. I'm going to show you how to do the white space part on this flower. I'm just mixing more deeper. I'm touching this side again with a more deeper purple and blue. And bringing it up just that much more. Okay, so to leave the white space, we're literally just going to leave gaps within our paper. So I'm going to come in and fill out the parts that I like with the paint. Once you have the gap that you feel like you're happy with, you're going to get rid of everything on your brush. You're just going to touch the edge here. You're not going inside of the color that you have. You're literally just touching that harsh line with just water. And you'll see now I have a smooth transition. I feel like it's just a little too big though, so I am going to come in and just make it that much smaller. And there we go. So now you can kind of see the difference. So right here, it's a lot more bright and vibrant. That white space, it stands out just that much more. I'm just going to blend that a little bit more. But then over here, you still have the highlight, but it's just a little bit darker. I'm going to let this dry. Yeah, these are dry, so I can repeat what I did over here. Coming in with this nice color. I'm going to do the white space one again, especially because this one is on top. I'll leave that part be the white space, get rid of everything on my brush, touching just the edges here so that I have a soft blend. I'm going to get that more, that deeper blue. And I'm going to touch the center. I'm even going to touch the edges up here a little bit. And I'm going to try to mix these two colors in. Bring this turquoise color that much more inside. Okay, doing the other side. This is the fun part for me. I love seeing what the colors do and how they're mixing together. I love this part. This part I'm going to have it be a little bit darker. I'm going to touch just the ends right here, the edges, leaving some white space, coming in with that darker blue. Touch the creases on the inside over here, bringing it up just a hair. You can even bring in this color purple around different spots as well. So you'll also see here my centers are a little bit darker in the middle, but because I transitioned this outer part to be lighter, this will look really cohesive as well. So speaking about staying cohesive, I need to make sure that these outer ones still stay a bit darker than my inside ones as well. So I'm going to come in here and I'm not leaving as much highlight. I'm going to use that darker blue. I'm going to come in and just touch different points in here. I'm going to repeat what I just did. So I'm going to get this turquoise color. That is not the turquoise color. Grab my turquoise color, bring it in. Because it's underneath it, I want it to be darker. I'm going to grab that more pigmented blue, touch just the edges while it's wet, and let that bleed and blend and do what it needs to do. I'm going to leave these two petals for a hot second as well. I'm going to follow along and repeat what I did on this one. Grab everything on my brush. Bringing that all over, letting it blend out because it's still wet. I'm going to grab more pigment of this darker one and just touch the bottom and let that do its thing. And repeat again. This time I want the center just to be a little bit more highlighted. So I'm just going to leave this area. And I'm going to do a little bit of a less, and just kind of touch down here just a little bit. I need to blend that out. It's already kind of dry. Didn't use enough water. Okay. And I'm going to let that dry. I already can tell I absolutely love this one. I love the mix of the purple and the blue. Okay, and then coming back to this this turquoise one, I'm going to add the last of the petals in here. Okay, so you'll also see here, I have a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to, sorry, an ink mark. So I'm going to come in and just apply more of a natural shadow. So it looks like there is a bit of a crease within this flower. I also have a little bit more ink up here that I want to kind of hide. So I'm just going to do a second layer. This is called the wet on dry technique, where I'm painting my wet paint onto a dry surface. Just like that. I just add a little bit more darkness right in here. Okay. I'm pretty happy with how this looks so far. And then I'm just going to do this flower purple. And I want to mix the purple into this blue that I had already in here, but I primarily want it to be purple. I might even add, yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red, just a little bit. Yeah, I like that color. A little bit more cadmium red. Okay, and repeat. Come in. touch it with a more pigmented color. Use a damp brush. Blend out any harsh lines that I might have. So you gotta be careful here to not do the body. So I'm just gonna come in and do right in here. Now the body's, no it's not. I just painted the body. Just told you to be careful, then I just did it. Yeah, okay. Be careful of the body. It's hard to see. Okay. We come in. Get rid of everything on my brush and blend, leaving a bit of white space, blending out this line, and touching with a little bit more pigment around different parts. I think I just did this one a little bit too shy of the, there we go. I gotta move this one further in. Oh, I like it with the pop of red. I'm actually gonna put that everywhere. I really like that. Now I just have to blend it out. So I just added a little bit more of a cadmium red into that purple, and I'm just using some water now to blend it out. I just put it towards the center here, but I actually really love how that turned out. That was really pretty. Okay. And here we go. We have the first layer down of our really pretty flowers, of our loose watercolor. So what we can do here is similar to the technique that we've already been using. I'm trying to just decide, maybe I'll do, I think I'm gonna do another purple. So I'm gonna come in, same technique as before, leaving some white space, having the bottom part be the darker area. So touching the bottom so it's a little bit more pigmented, getting rid of everything on my brush and blending it out. And I'm gonna do a blue. On this one. And then I'm gonna dry these. That way I can move on. Okay, so to finish this off, I'm gonna mix up my nice sap green, and because this is kind of a nice, bright, vibrant color, I'm gonna mix in some sap green with some hooker's green. I'm also gonna do a dab of gray. I'm gonna use my size 4 brush, and I'm gonna follow my stems all the way down. And I'm using the very tip of my brush, trying really hard to just stay in the lines here. I'm going to use the tip of my brush again to just scoop up some parts. Wiggling it around to try to get a little bit of a highlight. And now lifting. Okay, so we can add a little bit more detail here to the stems by just adding a little bit of a darker green. So I just mixed in a lot more gray and hooker's green. And it really just makes this nice moody color. And I'm gonna put this down on just like one side in some streaks inside of my branches here. Not branches, oh my goodness, my stems. I'm not putting it into the center. Shadowing underneath just a little bit. Pulling it down just on one side using the very tip of my brush, being so careful to use really light pressure here. And I'm also not doing it all the way down either. I'm leaving some spaces and gaps, not doing perfect lines. Okay, so I'm happy with how my stems turned out. Now I can work on the centers of my flowers. So I want to come in with a nice bright yellow. So I'm going to use my cadmium yellow, pull it in here. I am going to just mix a small amount of cadmium red in here as well. And I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna blot along, and you're gonna see I'm just touching my page, but I'm also gonna be leaving a little bit of white space in here as well. So I'm gonna come in and just repeat on all of these. And I'm also gonna come in the center right here and just put a little bit of yellow right in here. And I'm gonna leave that one. And I'm gonna let this dry. I can even scoop up a little bit in here just to have a little bit more of a highlight. Yeah, I'm gonna let that dry before I do anything else. I'm gonna add a little bit more cadmium red to make it orange. And I'm gonna touch around the edges with this orangey color that I have. And this will help give the effect that it's more circular and not flat. Give it some nice depth to it. I'm actually gonna grab a little bit more yellow and add more yellow. I'm gonna dry this to speed up the process. Okay, so now what I wanna do, I wanna grab some black. Mix it in here. I'm also gonna grab a little bit of purple in this black as well. And I'm gonna really carefully just do some flicks. I'm gonna be leaving some gaps, just doing the smallest amounts of brush strokes that you can do here. Really small. And then on this side in particular, we can make them a little bit bigger. So kind of doing like little streaks and blots where I put the orange where the lines meet. And then I'm gonna come away from those dots a little bit and then just do a little bit more streaks. So the last thing that we can do, this part is definitely optional. You don't have to do this, but you can come into your flowers and then just add a little bit more like streaks to it. And this will just help it look a little bit more realistic. Again, if you're pretty happy with how yours is looking, you don't have to do this part. And I want to just fix this blue line that I have over here a little bit more. I don't really love how it's looking, so I'm gonna come in here and just add another layer. All right, so just take a couple minutes just to clear off my palette really quick. Ooh, that was wet. So yeah, I have looked up what a monarch butterfly really looks like. So now what I'm going to come in and do is I want to mix up the colors right in here. So I'm going to use my cadmium yellow. Now monarch butterflies, they're more orange than they are yellow. So I'm going to mix up a lot of yellow in here. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to use my cadmium red to mix up a nice orange. Then I'm going to make a little bit more of like a darker orange right in here. Or I guess a little bit more of a yellowy, reddish orange. Okay. So I'm going to be working section and section, and I'm not going to worry so much about my lines because, well, I want to obviously stay in the lines as much as possible, but if I go outside of my lines, it's not the end of the deal because I'm going to be painting over it with black. Okay, so I'm going to grab now my really pigmented orangey color, and I'm going to mix that in. Now this wing right here, this is the wing that's further away. So I do want it to be a little bit darker, and I'm just scooping up and making some lines in here. Grab that lighter orange, come in. I'm gonna do that again. I'm gonna touch the top while it's still wet. Scoop up a little bit. Touching the top, even with these little mini ones. And I'm gonna dry this. Okay, so what I want to do with these ones towards the bottom is I actually am gonna undercoat it with some yellow. So my first layer in here is going to be yellow, and then I'm going to paint over top once this yellow is dried. That way underneath it has a more natural yellow tone to it. It's right here. I'm going to do a little bit more of a yellow in this one as well. And then I'm going to mix up a bit of a gray. I'm going to add a little bit of cadmium red, cadmium yellow to it. I'm going to do these back ones. Okay, and then for these ones right here, I can just come in . Putting more of my color up here. So now that I have all of my base colors down, I can come in and add my second and sometimes my third layer. So I'm just gonna dry this really quick. Okay, and just because I'm excited about how this one down here is gonna look, I'm gonna start on those ones. So I'm gonna come in with a wash of my orange, and I am going to lay that down over top. I'm gonna get rid of everything on my brush and let there be a nice blend between my two colors. Come in to my top area while it's still wet in here and just add ever so slightly some lines right in there. Gonna repeat. I want this to be a little bit more orange. Coming in on one side, getting rid of everything on my brush, blending out the harsh line that I might have, and then touching different areas towards the top. For everything on my brush, slice. Okay, I'm going to come in now and do this bigger one. I'm going to do some lines coming up and down. And then in the middle, I'm going to leave it with this nice yellow that I have. And I'm just going to get water, and I'm just going to blend out that line that I have. And same thing for in here. I got to mix up more orange. Gonna do some lines, get rid of everything on my brush, and then I can use some water to soften out these lines and to blend it out. I'm gonna give this one another layer with that nice bright and vibrant orange that I just had. So it's important when you're doing this part to make sure that you're not completely covering the first layer or even the second layer that you have. Let those layers shine through. This will give you the best effect. Coming in, doing the same thing, doing some slices, the very tip of my brush, getting rid of it, using some water to blend out any harsh lines. I'm gonna come in and do this one again with this like reddish color. That way it just plays into all of it. Okay, and I want this section down here to be lighter, but I also think it's just too dull. So I am just gonna add a little bit of emphasis down in here, but you'll see how now I have my second and third layer. I'm not going over top too much where I'm covering them. It's too red. making sure that my second and my first layer, they shine through. And I'm able to get this effect of it literally sitting on top because all of these other layers that I've already done is dry. If I was to do this while the first or second layer was still wet, it would just bleed and blend naturally. It wouldn't be able to sit on top. So this is the wet on dry technique that I'm doing. This is the technique that gives us depth and dimension. So keeping all that in mind, similar thing that we've been doing with the flowers, letting our layers dry. Oh yeah, I like that so much better. It's not as flat. And I can just do something similar in here. I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to these, liven them up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go close the door. My furnace is really loud, so I'm gonna start with a nice gray, and if I want to at some points I can come in and darken it up. I just don't want to pull directly from my palette and just have it too dark. I don't want that at all. So I'm going to start on one side, and you'll see it's a nice gray, nothing crazy. And the same thing that we did with our flowers, I'm going to go section by section. Okay, so this will be my first little section. And when I'm finding my paper is drying so fast, I'm not sure if this is still kind of warm. So I'm gonna just put down, I think, a bit of water first. And then I'll go in so it's not so streaky. So I'm moving in over here. My water that I have on my table is pretty muggy. So it's already kind of pulling gray, which is fine. If your paper is giving you enough time, you don't have to worry about this step, but for whatever reason, my paper's giving me a hard time right now. So I'm just gonna do the wet on wet technique. Okay, now I can apply that first color. Yeah, now I have no streaks. Okay, so now that I have the first layer down, I'm gonna move on now to the body of my butterfly. So I'm gonna come and fill in her body. It's a little bit thicker right here. And I'm gonna dry this actually. I'm gonna scoop up a little bit for her tummy. And then I'm gonna come in and do this longer part that she has. Okay, so for her body, I definitely want to make this part stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to outline it, leave the middle, and then scoop up and blend. Same with her tummy area in here. Just blending it out, making it a little bit darker. Her head. Gonna blend that out just a little bit more. And then I'm gonna do her little antennas. I did sketch where the feet were, but I have also lost it. So I'm just gonna have to freehand her little feet. Or if I even want to do feet, I have to think about that. Okay, so for the second layer, I'm just not loving how this honestly just blended on this paper. I think I said at the beginning, I'm just not loving this paper that I bought. I'm just trying to get through the pack, and then I'm going to be switching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a second layer just to kind of help make this a little bit more pretty. So I'm going to come in now with my second layer and see how black this now is. I love it. It's so rich because we did 2 layers. I'm going to come in here and do it as well. Okay, I do want there to be gradual transition here. I don't want this all just super, super dark. So I am gonna come in and bring this gray part, this black part all the way down. I'm gonna see if I can get some gray, not so black, and yeah, blend this part out. Now, just to kind of make this a little bit more realistic, I can come in with a little bit of gray and just kind of start blending out the top. I can even add a wash of a gray inside. Okay, so I also have here this bleed proof white that I want to use. I just knew that when I would be painting this butterfly that it would take me absolutely ever to cut around with the black. So I decided that I'd either use acrylic paint or I'd use this. And I would come in and just create the little shapes that some of the butterflies have. And I'm just freehanding some rough shapes that they might be. I might have to do 2 layers and start to slowly transition and make them smaller. I can add some more shine to the body. I'm gonna blend that out a little bit more. Just so that she stands out a little bit. So you can take this time now to add any more details that you might have. If you want to add some more flowers, if you want to add some leaves and greenery and just really make this look like a wildflower wilderness piece, I'm just adding a second layer onto that gray that black was really black. So it just needs a second coat of this stuff, which is fine. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how mine is. I'm not going to do much else to it, but you can definitely get creative on your own. I hope that you had fun painting this. I absolutely love painting flowers, and this butterfly was fun, kind of tedious but fun. I hope that you learned something and come back for another video. Happy painting, friends.